Hi, guys. Today's recording is specifically designed to help you with building a great target list. Regardless of how old you are, what grade you're in, whether or not, even if you've been evaluated or taken the ACT or the SAT, it's never too early to start researching schools and building a list of target schools. Keep in mind that this list can always change over the course of time as you go out and see more things and you get older and you get evaluated and get numbers more often, but you can start building a great target list as young as 7th, 8th grade, even if you want to. And the earlier that you start with this, the more you're going to know and the more your preferences will play into the school that you end up going to. My name is Adam Nemo. I'm one of the baseball recruiting coaches with NCSA, and I'm going to be taking you through today's class. I'm going to jump onto a demo account on NCSA and walk you through the specifics and show you exactly how to go about researching schools, looking for things, and building a target list. So just some initial pointers, guys. Don't assume anything when you are building this list of target schools. Do not assume that you are a Division I guy until you have a Division I offer and you've already committed to that school. You are a lot of times young enough in this process when you're starting early, freshman, sophomore year, even junior year, where you have to keep your mind open to lots of different division levels. And keep in mind that division levels are really just divisions of all they are. There are schools at Division II that would beat Division I schools. When I played at Ohio State, we went down to UNF, which was a Division II school at the time. They crushed us. Division III schools consistently beat Division II schools, and smaller Division Is can beat bigger Division Is. So don't lock in on division levels. Lock in on preferences, size of school, setting of school, proximity to home, majors, costs, things like that. Also, don't assume a school that you've seen on TV or that you think you will like that you will like. If you haven't been on a campus or you haven't been on any campuses, really what you're basing it on is sometimes do they play on TV and what do their uniforms look like and do they play in the College World Series. So do not assume that a school is a good fit for you until you've really researched it and hopefully that you've seen it too. It's good to have those dream schools, but it needs to be based on something that you're really working towards. Advice on building your target list if you're doing this for the first time. Build it from the inside out. Start with schools that are in your home state or the surrounding states. So if you're in one of the states that has lots of different schools at lots of different division levels, this is a good point. If you start in a more rural state with less population, say you're in a place like Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, places like that, yeah, you're going to have to expand to some of the surrounding states and out of region. But start with schools that you have the most access to them and they have the most access to you. Make it a point to start taking some admissions visits to these schools. Make it a point to go watch some games this spring if you can, so you can get a feel for the facilities, the level of competition, all those things. Really start to go see things with your own eyes so that you're making decisions based on things that you've actually seen. And then as you're starting to build a target list, especially if you haven't been out to see a lot of good schools, what you are really seeking, guys, is different. A list of schools that have different qualities. There should be on your list big, medium, and small. There should be public and private schools. There should be in and out of state schools. There should be schools that are in bigger cities, schools that are more suburban, schools that are more rural, and there should be all different division levels on that list of schools. So once you've made a few visits and been on a few campuses and really talked about it and thought about it as a family, if you want to start to narrow down to a specific kind of school, that makes sense. But for the initial starting point, guys, keep your mind open. Go see as many different things as you can so you can build up those preferences on what you like. When we get into the demo account, I'm going to show you this match analysis page, and this is very important. So some of you may not have test scores yet. Some of you may not have even been evaluated on the video side of things, and that's okay. Obviously, the sooner you can get those things, the more helpful it is to evaluate yourself against what a school is looking for. But when you get onto that match analysis page, you're going to see the athletic comparison and the academic comparison. The goal is to be as close as you can to that sweet spot of what they're looking for. So you're going to be in green, and you can see where I was with a specific school, and the school itself is going to be in blue. And you want to fall into and overlap at as many of those ranges as you possibly can. If you see yourself falling short in any of those areas, it doesn't mean that you don't have time to change those things, but your whole list cannot consist of schools that have a bunch of red X's over here. There have to be a lot of green check marks in that school. So you're looking for a balanced list, preferably as many of these schools that match up with what you bring to the table as possible. And then lastly, as you are starting to research schools, it's very helpful, and I'll show you when I get in there, to have several different tabs open. Obviously, you should have your NCSA profile open. You should definitely have Google Maps or something up there so that you can see these schools on a map and measure how far away they are from home. I would definitely recommend having niche.com up, one of our partners, for additional academic research, and then have a page up so that you can do some research on the baseball program itself too. So I'll show you some different things when we get in there of what to be looking for and how to be looking for them, but have a few of these things open so that you can run through and have a process of how you're evaluating a school. Even if you've never heard of the school before, you want to have a way to be able to go through and take a look at the different things that they bring to the table and measure them against what you bring to the table. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to walk you through how I would go about building a target list of schools. So I have a demo account up here, and I just threw in the numbers that I had when I was in school, my grades and my test scores and height, weight, all that stuff. I put in here that I've been evaluated already at the level that I was. I ended up playing at Ohio State, guys, but I was a preferred walk-on. My real sweet spot was Division I, kind of smaller at the highest end, and probably Division II schools and Division III schools were long-term going to be the best fit for me. So I'm going to take you through. I've got all these different tabs open. I've got my profile open. I've got the college search map up. So if you go to the Find Colleges tab on your profile, guys, you're going to see this college search map so you can do your research. I've got my map up with my hometown. The thriving metropolis of Marion, Ohio is on the screen, so you can see the different things that you want to see on a map. I've got niche.com pulled up so that I can do my research on the individual schools, and then I've got an additional tab up here so that I can see what I want to see with these baseball programs too. So starting at the beginning, we about owning your own home state. My home state was Ohio. So when I go through here, I do have a few preferences because when I was a sophomore, junior in high school, I kind of had a feel for what I was looking for. So you can go through here and put in as many filters as you want. Remember, guys, the more things that you put in, the smaller the list is going to be. But, if you keep it pretty open and stick to the things that you know you want, it's going to generate a list of schools. So I put Ohio in here. And I want to look for four-year schools first. I'm going to keep my mind open to the junior college level because I want to have options at all different division levels, and I want to go see those things. I'm going to go down here to where it says academic selectivity, so you can see based off of my grades, I was a pretty good student, but I was not like an Ivy League type guy, so I would be looking for selective and somewhat selective. And then the major at the time that I was looking for was communications and broadcast journalism. So I would go in here, click on my major, and you can go through and put in multiple majors if you want, but I had a specific major that I knew I wanted. And what I'm looking to do is generate this list of schools. So this is going to give me a list of four-year schools in Ohio, and I'm going to make it as big as I can. 41 schools in the state of Ohio. All different division levels, public, private, different sizes. I can sort by all these different things: athletic selectivity, academic selectivity, division level, cost, enrollment, and match percentage level. So you can sort by whatever you want, but I'm going to go in and sort by match percentage because I want to see the schools that I have the best fit with at this point. So when I start looking through schools, I'm going to start with looking at the match analysis of any program that I come across because I want to know how I stack up against what they are looking for and what they're looking for academically and with baseball. So when I go in here, it tells me that I am right in the sweet spot of what they're looking for with baseball. And you see all these green check marks here, which is really what you're looking for. I'm looking for GPA. Where do I fall? Middle to high end of that. I'm looking for test scores. Where do I fall? Right in the middle of that. So this would definitely be a sweet spot school for me with Ohio Northern. So Ohio Northern, if I go in and look at Ohio Northern, so I can pull up their individual page. Maybe. Let's try another way. And it's going to give me a lot of different information. So I can go in and see if it's public or private. I can see how competitive it is. I can see the cost. But I'm also going to go over here and look at academics and double check a few things and make sure that my communications major is there, which it is, communications. And look through, they've got journalism as well. So this would definitely be a school that I should be looking into. So we looked at the match analysis already with Ohio Northern. Now we're going to go through the process of evaluating the school. I'm going to look at it on Google Maps and see how far away it is from home and the different settings. So this is only 52 minutes from my hometown. As I zoom out, I see that I'm not close to any major cities. Columbus is down here, Dayton is up here, Toledo. So this is definitely a more rural school, which is fine. I hadn't been on many campus visits, so I'm okay with looking at rural schools. I don't want an entire list of rural schools, but I certainly am okay with adding Ohio Northern so far. I'm also going to go in and look at niche.com and do my research on the school there. So on this specific page for Ohio Northern, I'm going to be able to get on, a variety of levels, the grades that Niche gives to a different school. I'm going to be able to go down and see where it ranks on a variety of different lists. I'm going to get the ACT and the SAT range. I'm going to get the acceptance rate and the admissions policies and deadlines and things like that, which is good. I'm going to get a feel for the cost. I'm going to be able to go through and look at the academics. I'm going to get a feel for the majors and do my research there, size of school, campus life, and then I have reviews on the school too. Ohio Northern is definitely going to go on my target list so far. The last thing I need to do is research the baseball program. So if I put in Ohio Northern University baseball roster at the top, I'm going to be able to take a look at their baseball roster. So what I'm looking for when I go to a school's roster is a few things. Number one, where are these kids from? If I'm from Ohio and I'm looking at an Ohio school, I want to hopefully see a lot of kids on the list from Ohio. So as I'm searching through here, it doesn't say Ohio with all these schools, but I know with some of these schools they're in state. If it says a different state, that's an out-of-state school. So there's definitely some diversity on this roster, but the overwhelming majority of these schools are in Ohio. So they recruit very heavily from the state of Ohio. Another good thing. So I'm also going to go and check out their schedule. What have they been like the past couple years? Okay, they're 3-2 this year. I may want to see if they go down to Florida, which they do. Obviously nice being from Ohio to be able to go down to Florida for a week and play some baseball. They're in a pretty competitive conference with some pretty good schools. And I can also check and see, are they playing, this coming weekend? Or are they playing in later March? Maybe I could go check out the game against Heidelberg on the 23rd, or check out a game, later in the season when it's a little bit warmer and see what maybe some of these other schools that I might have some interest in. I can also go back and look at things like statistics. I can look at the history of the program. So if I wanted to go and look at, say, their 2018 results and see how good they were last year, it's all here. 27-15. Pretty solid program. Went to Florida last year as well. Won a couple games in the OAC tournament. Or I guess lost a couple games in the OAC tournament. But they lost to pretty good teams, Otterbein, Marietta. So 27-15. Pretty good program. I can go in and look back at the roster and check out guys in my position. I was a catcher, so I would see, okay, catchers, how tall are they? 5'8", 165. Okay, that's not, they're not looking for these giant catchers necessarily. 5'11", 165. Okay, so I've got a feel for the roster. This one makes a lot of sense, guys. So 98% match percentage, has my major close to home. It's a rural school. It's a smaller school, but I've got to have some schools like that. Maybe I would go down and check out the next one on the list in John Carroll, which is a school that actually recruited me. Again, I see a lot of good things here with the match analysis on the baseball side, on the school side of things. A lot of green check marks. That's what we're looking for. So I would go through my process again, put John Carroll on the map. 2 hours and 10 minutes away from home. And you can see here it's up by Cleveland. So this would definitely be more of a suburban school. I'm going to do my research on Niche, so we don't have to go through every single school on Niche and show you that. But 2 hours away from home, suburban school. Okay, I've got some diversity here. I'm going to look up their baseball program and check out the roster for sure. I don't need to go in and show you guys necessarily everything, but always look at coaches, schedules, those types of things. Take a look at the roster here again. A lot of kids from Ohio, definitely some Pennsylvania kids being close to Pennsylvania. Got some Michigan kids, Massachusetts, so there's some diversity here too. All good stuff. Again, makes a lot of sense, so I'm going to go back and favorite it. So I definitely have some higher match percentages here with Division III schools, but I want some diversity. I need to have some Division I schools on here. I need to have some Division II and other division levels too. So here comes the Division I schools. I sorted by division level. I've got all the D1s here at the top. So the schools that I have the highest match percentages with of the Division I schools would be, looks like Dayton at 84%, Youngstown State, 79%, and the school that I ended up going to, Ohio State, 70%. So let's pop in there, and I want to show you this with Ohio State because this would qualify as a reach school. So we go to the match analysis page. I am short of what they're looking for on the baseball side of things. And this is from sophomore, junior year or so, where I would compare where I was athletically. And I go down here and I see my GPA is kind of on the lower end. My ACT and SAT scores are on the lower end of what they're looking for. So even though I have a 70% match percentage, it does tell me here at the top, it's a reach for you athletically, it's a reach for you academically. And that's okay. It's okay to have some reach schools. It's okay to have some schools that maybe you're not yet qualified for, but that can't be your entire list of schools. So I would do my research. I would go through Google Maps. I would put it on niche. I would look up the baseball roster, and I would still add Ohio State to my target list, but I can't just go through and go, okay, Bowling Green, OU, Miami, Kent State, Youngstown State, Cincinnati, Xavier, Toledo, Dayton. Cool, that's my target list. So you have to be able to have different division levels, different settings. So if I'm looking for a school that maybe wasn't a big city setting like Ohio State, maybe I would go check out a place like Miami, an 81% match. So again, match analysis. Again, short, reach, athletically, a little bit better fit baseball, or a little bit fitter academically. Still a little bit kind of towards the lower end of what they're looking for. So again, this, even though it's an 81% match, may still be a little bit of a reach for me. Just look at the numbers and look at these things, guys. Be objective. Look at it critically. Don't assume anything. Even though it's an 81% match, it is still a little bit of a reach for me. So I would go in and check it out on the map. I'm looking for different settings and things like that. So it's still popped up with John Carroll. Let me get Miami on there. And it got Tiffin somehow. So Miami University, 2.5 hours away from home, not too far away from Cincinnati, not too far away from Dayton, but it's definitely more of a rural to suburban type school, which is good. Ohio State is a big city school, so I've got some different things on here. Again, I'm looking for different. So I've got my Ohio State. I've got my Miami. I would definitely go through and research the other Division I schools and add a few more of these schools to the list. But I will save us the time of going through. So I've got my big boys on there. I've got my Division I schools. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Division I schools. Now I know my blind spot is I need to get some Division II here too. So an initial glance, I see some in the 90s and I see some in the 80s, which is good. So if I'm looking at schools and ones that I know are close to home, Ohio Dominican is close to home with 1,000 kids. That's what I'm looking for. Maybe some smaller schools since I just put some bigger schools on there. I'll put Ohio Dominican in on the map. An hour and 3 minutes away from home. Pretty close to Columbus, definitely not downtown Columbus, but more of that urban, suburban setting again. So a smaller school in a bigger city versus Ohio State, which has 41,000 students, which is a very large school in a big city. Remember, guys, I want to see different. I want to go through and look at these things. So I put in Ohio Dominican. I want to do a little research on their baseball program just to make sure that it checks out. So their roster, a lot of kids from Ohio. This is good. This means they recruit a lot of kids, and I'm looking through some of the cities, a lot of central Ohio, a lot of kids from an hour or two away. Good stuff. Go check the schedule. Go check out the coaches. This one makes a lot of sense, too. I click on the match analysis. Still kind of on the lower end, even though it's a Division II school. But now I look at academics. I might be a little bit overqualified on the academic side of things, which is not a bad thing. Guys, you'd much rather be a little bit overqualified than a little bit underqualified when it comes to really adding schools as target list schools that are kind of in that sweet spot. So even though I might not quite be there with baseball, I fit what they're looking for academically, and I might be very attractive to them as a good academic student. So I've got Ohio Dominican on here, and I would go through, just for the sake of time, I'll throw a couple more on there that I was recruited by and interested in. Ashland, Tiffin, and then I've got my list. So I scroll down a little bit more. I'm looking for some NAIA schools. I know I want that diversity. Mount Vernon. I see a competitive NAIA school here. So let's take a look at that. Let's see how far away they are from home. Mount Vernon Nazarene, an hour away from home. Probably a more rural school based on the map. Go check out the baseball team. See where these guys are from. So a lot of kids from Ohio again. They have a couple of international students, but a lot of kids from Ohio. Pretty much every single other kid on the roster is from Ohio. I would go check out the schedule. Check out the quality of the team. They're 11-6 this year. Looks like they go down to maybe Myrtle Beach, maybe go to Florida, which is good. Definitely want to go somewhere warm in the spring. We'll check out the coaches. We'll check out all that stuff. Back to the match analysis. See how it checks out. Good overlap there. Academically, exceeding a little bit what they're looking for. No problem. 93% match. I can add that one to the list too. And then I would probably want to check out the junior college situation in my state because I have D1s, I have D2s, I have D3s. Now, when you go into the Find Colleges tab, guys, every single junior college defaults to all others. Just because of the way that the two-year system is, it's going to fall into all others. Doesn't mean that these schools are horrible academic schools. It just means that they're two-year schools that get you to that four-year school. So if I'm looking at junior colleges in the state of Ohio, I see a strong match with some of these schools, but I want to look at the competitive junior college program. So because I know ahead of time, I can help you guys with this. Sinclair is the best junior college probably in Ohio, along with Cuyahoga Community College are the two strongest ones. So I'm putting it into the map. I'm doing my research on the school. For the sake of time, I go in and favorite that. So now I have my initial list of in-state target schools. Okay? So I go to my colleges, I click on my favorites, and I've got my list. So I have a list now of 13 in-state schools, and again, I can always go back and add and subtract and sort these things, but I also want to show you guys real quick how to research schools that are out of state and looking for schools that might be better fits out of state than others. So I want to start with the surrounding states first, and I'm going to click on everything that surrounds Ohio, and I'm going to do the same thing. Looking for four-year schools, looking for selective or somewhat selective, looking for my major with communications, broadcast journalism, and I'm searching. So I did my in-state. Now I'm going to do the surrounding states. I'm going to do the same thing and sort by match level. I'm going to start at the top, Lawrence Tech. So let's take a look. Lawrence Tech. Two and a half hours away from home, a little bit north of Detroit, on the north side of a pretty big city. So kind of that urban, suburban setting again. I see they have 1,700 kids, and this is a private school. Okay, I've got some public schools. I definitely want to see some private schools too. I do my research on niche. Now on the baseball side of things, you are looking for something slightly different when you are looking at schools that are out of state. You are looking for schools that recruit out of state, obviously. So I'm looking for diversity on the roster. I'm hopefully looking for kids that are from my state on the roster too. So as I start to look through here, I obviously see a lot of kids from Michigan, but I also see kids from Ohio, several from Ohio, Virginia, Illinois, and I see mostly kids that have been recruited from the high school level. You're going to see a couple of guys that have transferred. But this checks out. They recruit a lot of high school kids, Michigan, surrounding states. I'm going to do my same research on the school itself. Looking at the schedule, there's their fall ball. They take a trip to Florida here in the upcoming week. Another good check. They play the University of Toledo, which is cool. They're playing a Division I school. And I look through here. They're playing Division II schools as well. So this is a good fit for me. So I need to go back and make sure that the match analysis kind of checks out here, which it does. A lot of green overlapping blue, a lot of green check marks. It tells me at the top I'm a 96% match. Let's do it. That one obviously makes sense. Some other examples, guys, would look at a place like Trine in Indiana. Okay, so you would obviously start at the top and work your way down, and you're going to see some different things, but I want to give you some example schools. So Trine in Indiana, a Division III school. I just added an NAIA school, so I want some different division levels on here. Again, a lot of overlapping, a little bit on the high end of what they're looking for academically, which again is fine. Put it into the map. If I can get it up here. There's Trine. 2.5 hours away from home. A little bit more rural. Not too far away from Fort Wayne. I do my niche research. I do my baseball program research. I see several guys from Ohio, and a lot of kids from Indiana and the surrounding states. I do my research on the schedule. I do my research on the coaches. This one makes sense. So I'm going to go through this list little by little and add some of these schools. Other schools that I would say I would find would be Washington and Jefferson. I see a very competitive, selective school, smaller school in Pennsylvania. I want to get some schools that are in some of those other surrounding states. Still on Trine. So Washington and Jefferson. Now we're getting 3.5 hours away from home, a little bit south of Pittsburgh. Check out the baseball roster. And right away, Ohio, Pennsylvania, a lot of kids from the surrounding states. Do some additional research on the schedule and the coaching staff. Add that one as a favorite. Now, the last thing I said I wanted to do was go south. Everybody in these states right here, guys, most of the kids that I talk to, most of the families I talk to, we want to go south. We want to go somewhere warm. I get it, but keep in mind that most of these schools that you start looking into are very competitive states, and they recruit predominantly from those competitive states. So I would have probably looked into Tennessee, the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. Those are good baseball states, warm weather, close to the ocean. Hey, I'm an Ohio kid. Let's take a stab at some of those too. So I'll go through and put my process in there. Selective, somewhat selective academically. Put my major in there. And search. Probably going to be a very large list since I have lots of division levels and lots of states, and that's okay. But again, I'm going to sort by match percentage. So let's take a look at the school on top. Oglethorpe University. So Atlanta, Georgia. I know off the bat this is a large city school. So I want to see how far away it is from home. 9.5 hours. So now we're getting more than just a little day trip away, guys. This is 9.5 hours away from home, which for some of you might be super appealing. But I'm going to do my research on the school. I'm going to do my research on the baseball program. So I'm going to guess as further and further away I get from home, I'm going to see fewer and fewer kids from Ohio. And this is going to be whether you're coming from Ohio or you're coming from Indiana or you're coming from California. You're probably not going to see a lot of kids from California on this roster, and that's fine. But I see a lot of kids from Georgia. I see a lot of kids in the Southeast. I don't see any kids from Ohio on this roster. I see a couple of kids from the Midwest, but this shows me this is going to be an uphill battle on the recruiting front with a school like this. It's further away from home. They don't recruit a ton of kids from my area. It doesn't mean that I can't go in and take a look at the program. It doesn't mean I can't take a look at the roster, look at the program, check out the coaches. But when I go back and look, it is a fit academically. It is a fit with baseball. So even though it is out of state and it is going to be a little bit tricky with the roster, I'm still going to add this because I want some warm weather schools. No problem. But I can't only add schools like this. Here's a Division I school towards the top, Elon. Let's check out Elon. See how far away that is from home. 7-8 hours away from home. So now we're getting a little bit further. Close to Raleigh, close to Winston-Salem, not too far from Charlotte. Okay, smaller Division I school, private school. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but I'm still going to check it out. A Division I school that I have a pretty high match percentage with. Willing to take a look. So I'll pull up their roster. I'll pull up their schedule. I go through my process. Let's see if I can find any kids from my area on here and take a look at the examples here. So I see a lot of kids from the East Coast. There's a kid from Ohio, but a lot of Florida, North Carolina, Northeast. So even though I see one kid from Ohio, it doesn't mean that they are just banging down the door of Ohio to recruit kids. So this is a Division I school. It's a reach for me athletically. It's a good fit for me academically. So again, I can add a school like this, guys, but I can't only add schools like this. So let's scroll down a little bit further. Let's see what other schools might be on here. So let's take a look at a place like UNC Asheville, another Division I school on here. So this is a public school, UNCA. See how far away it is on the map? Again, 7.5 hours away from home. kind of more in the mountains, not real close to any big cities, so definitely more of a rural, maybe suburban at best campus. I do my research on the school. Let's pull up the baseball program and see where they recruit from. Check out the roster. North Carolina, Jersey, a lot of kids from North Carolina. It's a state school, guys, so they're going to recruit a lot of kids that are in state. There's a Florida, there's a Connecticut, but I don't see a ton of kids from the Midwest at all. So this shows me this is going to be an uphill battle for me. They're 4-7 this year. Last year, 13-38. So a not as competitive Division I program, which is fine. But I'm still falling short on the baseball side of things. Just because it's not a super strong baseball program at the Division I level doesn't mean that it's just a layup for me. It definitely fits academically what I'm looking for. But listen, guys, I went and looked. This school is 8 hours away from home. It's a Division I school. I fall short, and they don't recruit anybody from my state. So I'm not going there. That's probably not a target list for me. And then lastly, one of the things I said was, hey, maybe I'll check out some schools in Florida. Maybe I'll find a school in Florida that, I could go check out. So a more selective academic school in Florida, smaller, St. Petersburg, sounds like a really nice place. It is. I've been there. 16 hours away from home. So this is Thanksgiving, coming home for the holidays, and that's it. Coming home for the summer, for the most part. Unless you're hopping on a plane every weekend to go home when you need to get your laundry done, which is probably not happening. So I would still do my research here. It's far away, but that doesn't mean it's going to stop me from taking a look at it. I'll check out the roster. I'm guessing I'm going to see a lot of kids from Florida on here, and I do. So I've got Connecticut, I've got Florida, I've got Michigan on here, but that kid went to IMG Academy, which is in Florida. Florida. A couple kids from the Northeast, but for the most part, Florida. So I look at the schedule, I look at the roster, take a look at the match analysis. Maybe I'm kind of on the lower end of what they're looking for. I fit academically what they're looking for. So, I would add this to my list. But when I'm looking through these out-of-state schools, I'm looking for kids from the Midwest. I'm looking for kids from Ohio. I'm looking through and making sure that these schools fit exactly what I'm looking for and that I'm qualified for these schools. Make sure that you guys are using this match analysis page. So that's kind of the research that you're going to do on these schools. So now that I have gone through and favorited some of these schools, now I have a more diverse list. I've got a list of 19 schools now, in-state, surrounding states, South, Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, and junior college. That's how you build a target list, guys. You've got diversity. You've got different things. Now the key is going to be going and checking out these schools, getting bigger, getting stronger, getting better so that you can be in better position to get in front of these schools when that time comes. So, to recap, don't assume anything. Build from the inside out. Look for diversity on that target list, guys. Make sure you're checking the match analysis page to see where you match up with these schools. Even if you don't have test scores yet, you can see where you're at with the baseball. You can see where you're at with your GPA. And make sure you have these things pulled up. Your profile, Google Maps, niche.com, and additional stuff for research. So hopefully you guys took a thing or two from today's recording, and hopefully now you can go out and start looking and researching and building schools to put onto your target list as well.